BetOnline is your number one source for all your summer sports, including MLB, golf, plus the NBA and NHL playoffs. Up-to-date stats, news, and scores available to follow your favorite teams. Get the latest odds and lines, including team matchups, player props, and odds on just about every sport out there. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to get in on the action. BetOnline, where the game starts.
Breggy bombs and Blanco's sticky balms. Let's get into it on Believe in Astros.
What's up, Astros fans?
This game is turned upside down!
Welcome to the Believe in Astros podcast with your hosts, sports writer Jeff Balke and former pitcher and Astros broadcaster Mike Stanton. Now, direct from H-Town, here's Balke and Stanton.
What is up, Astros fans? Welcome to episode 115 of the Believe in Astros podcast. I am Jeff Balke alongside my co-host Mike Stanton. Mike, we have a lot to talk about today, buddy.
Yeah, we do.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, man. The weather's finally, all that humidity finally blew out, and now we've got a couple of beautiful days. I'm sure the humidity's coming back.
You know it's Houston.
Hey, we got to enjoy this weather when we can. And on top of that, our hometown boys are actually playing pretty good baseball right now.
They are playing pretty good baseball, and then we'll talk a little bit about that real quickly. So I want to spend a lot of time talking about pitching for some obvious reasons. I just want to right out of the gate mention what happened to Alex Bregman. Like he's what is it? 3 home runs and a double, and I think 6 at bats over 2 games.
Right.
He said he changed his swing a little bit. He said he's getting the knob in front of the bat. Can you explain exactly what he means by that? Because I'm not sure I fully know.
Well, here's the problem with that. You know, what guys say and what they do sometimes are nowhere near each other.
I feel you.
And that's just one of those statements like, bat lag, bat drag, whatever it is. There's baseball's got a million little sayings that it just clicks for him. Mm-hmm. The problem with the whole idea of having the knob in front of the barrel is that how do you pull a ball? Well, you pull a ball by getting the head out in front.
Right.
So, but like I said, it really doesn't matter what he said. And actually what I took from that more than anything else, he said something before he said, knob in front. Mm-hmm. He actually said, I'm going back to the old reliable. I'm going back to something familiar. And to me, that's the one. Okay. He was trying something new. Mm-hmm. Maybe it even worked for a little while, but it's not working right now. So let's go back to what we know works.
Right. And
here's the biggest thing. Is he really doing it? Maybe not. I mean, I'd have to look at some slow motion film and some at bats from years ago to see if he's doing the same thing. Doesn't matter if he is or isn't. He feels like he is,
right? And
that builds comfort and that builds confidence. Right. And when you put those two together, now all of a sudden you're talking about a guy that is just a much better spot mentally to go out and perform.
Yeah, and we could always pull up the brand new StatCast bat speed analyzer,
right?
Which is out. But I'm with you. I think it's confidence. We talked about it on this show before. When guys are successful and they exhibit confidence, and suddenly in every sport they have a term for it. Like in basketball, they say when you're confident, the basket looks like an ocean and you're in the boat.
NBA likes to use the word focus.
That's true.
Yeah.
And I think
we had really good focus today. It's all the same thing. It's just a different way of saying it.
In baseball, you can just tell it's like all of a sudden, instead of a baseball, it looks like a volleyball coming at him. And that's great. I mean, that's anything like that can be good. So I don't care if it's the knob in front of the bat. I don't care what it is. Mm-hmm. But we do need moving on from break, we do really have to talk about what happened last night because it's such a significant deal. And I have a lot of questions for you as a pitcher. So Ronel Blanco was ejected from Tuesday night's game just prior to the 3rd inning. Umpires found a, quote, sticky substance on the inside of his glove, which is kind of an odd place for it in the first place. There's a lot to go over here. First of all, what are your first impressions of what you saw last night?
Okay. I do have some conspiracy theory.
And we all do.
And my conspiracy theory is, why are they checking him on the way out of the dugout? Okay, that's not when they usually check him. Mm-hmm. It's usually checked on the way off the mound. Okay. They'll check relievers when they're coming in the game, but you don't usually check the starting pitcher on the way out. And the biggest reason why is there's time restraints. You know, you have a certain amount of time in between innings that you're going to burn that time when you just maybe checked him on the way off the mound the inning before. I wonder if somebody on the other side, and listen, this is a conspiracy theory. I have no proof whatsoever. Okay. I wasn't at the game. I wasn't watching Mark Kotze on the other side. Okay. But I wonder if somebody said something to him, said something to the umpires about him using the rosin on his non-throwing hand. And actually, this is a rule that I didn't know about.
I didn't either. I'm glad you said that.
It is illegal to use the rosin on your glove hand. I don't know why. Here's the problem I have with all this, because you have to remember, we had a big issue with this last year with Max Scherzer.
That's right.
Now, Max Scherzer, that story was they gave him a couple different times. One of the things they said, go to the dugout and clean your hand off. Well, with alcohol, they told him with alcohol. Well, here's the problem with cleaning your hand off with alcohol. When you're talking about a sticky substance, it makes it sticky.
I was going to say, alcohol is not going to help you.
Not at all. That's actually kind of the worst thing you could use.
Umpires are not chemists, obviously.
Right. So I'm looking at this situation. I don't think that Ronel Blanco had anything illegal on the mound. And here's where Major League Baseball really missed the boat. There should have been something done this offseason about this whole idea that rosin is a legal substance, but you can't use it in excess. Well, who's there to determine whether it's in excess or not? And I just read the report by Brian McTaggart on MLB from MLB.com, and it said the umpire said it was the stickiest he had ever felt since we started. Come on, give me a freaking break. I saw you stick your hand in the glove. I saw you, push on the inside of the glove. There's no way it could have been that sticky. And if it was that sticky, why did you have to confer with the other umpires?
Right.
If it's that sticky, you gone. Well, there's no question about it. You have way too much stuff. So, I think there's a playing to the situation a little bit by the umpiring crew.
Oh, for sure.
But the rules are the rules, and he gets kicked out. But why are there other guys that they've been able to change their glove?
Now
why have there been
great
like
question.
the Max Scherzer situation?
Yes.
It was actually the third time that they kicked him out. Now, I know Ronel Blanco is not Max Scherzer, but still, the rules are the rules.
Well, there was a Dodger pitcher
this is something
year
that Major League Baseball should have looked at and been a little bit more specific with the rule itself this offseason.
I 100% agree with you. Yeah, 100%. There was a Dodger pitcher this year who there was some issue, and they just said, "Hey, go change your glove or whatever."
Right.
I'm glad you brought up this rule about not using rosin on the non-throwing arm. First things first, Ronel Blanco is a very sweaty individual. Right? There are some guys who just sweat a lot.
He is what I call a sweat hog. By the way, I'm one too.
Are you? Well, see, there you go. And that man, he sweats a lot. So what happens? So I don't think lots of people understand what rosin is. I mean, you and I talked about it a little bit. It's a drying agent. What happens when rosin meets sweat? Does it get sticky like that?
So there's two different types of rosin. You go to your local sporting goods store and you buy a little bag of rosin. It's a powder. Now, I'm not saying it's not real rosin, but it's a powdery rosin. Okay. What these guys are using is what we used to call real rock rosin. So it doesn't come in a powder form. It actually comes as little rocks. You put it in the bag, or back then we used to put them in sanitary socks. That's how you and then as you wiggle it around, it kind of crumbles up, and then that's what you get on your hand. And real rock rosin, go out and touch your local, pine tree, is sticky stuff. But it is designed as a drying agent, and that's why you would have Ronel Blanco, because what Ronel said was, I had put it on my forearm. His glove hand, his left forearm, because of the sweatiness. Now, it wasn't, overly hot last night. But even the situation In the first inning, he threw like 29 pitches to get out of the first inning. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of stress right there. So I'm sure he had what I had teammates used to call it bacon grease. Had the bacon grease flowing, once he
for sure,
getting out of that first inning.
No doubt.
But I just don't know why he was looked at on the way out to the mound unless somebody had mentioned something. Again, no proof of that.
Right.
Just my own crazy brain say, this is not a place you want to spend a whole lot of time. You never know what's going to come out.
Well, I will say this too. Watching that incident, part of me is, what are pitchers allowed to bring onto the mound with them? I mean, can they bring a towel? Like if they're sweaty, like what are they allowed to bring and not bring?
Not as far as I know, you can't bring a towel.
So then your rosin is the only way to dry off if you're really sweaty. It seems ridiculous.
Or, using your jersey or your pants or something. But guess what? It only takes a short period of time, and that stuff's wet too.
Well, especially the new jerseys, which are apparently awful.
Right. Yeah, they're like tissue paper.
Yeah.
And that's why I said Major League Baseball should have looked at this the last offseason. Yeah. Just the simple fact that you put something out there that you say is legal, but you can't use a lot of it. Okay, what if I'm really, I came up and started playing in Atlanta, also nicknamed Hot Atlanta.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, there were times that I was a reliever and I would actually look down before I would take my signs. And I would have sweat dripping off my hat. Right. I had already sweat all the way through my hat.
Right.
I mean, come on. I just don't understand this whole idea of in excess.
Yeah.
They need to come up with something that is legal. You can take a bath in it if you want, but something that is legal, and you're going to leave the pitchers alone. The crazy thing is, Ronel Blanco, he's not like a guy that's got a big hammer curveball.
Yes,
he's not 100%. A guy. The changeup, here's the thing that people need to understand. Well, he's got this new pitch. It's a changeup, and it's been really, really good. The idea of a changeup, you actually want the ball to slip out of your hand, not spin out of your hand. That's where the depth on the pitch comes from. That's where the sink comes from, is lack of what's called spin rate. You don't want it spinning the same speed that your fastball is.
Right.
That's not how it works.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up.
Because listen, go to Baseball Savant and look at the numbers. Mm-hmm. That's something anybody can look at. You go to player breakdown, and the first thing that's going to come up is the pitchers.
Right.
So scroll down to Ronel Blanco and look at the spin rates. You can get this almost it's almost live as happened.
Right. It is.
It's a little bit of a delay.
Pretty close.
But you can see what is his spin rate on his fastball, what is his spin rate on his changeup. So the rosin, the stickiness is not going to help the changeup.
It's just, to me, the whole thing with baseballs in general is, as someone who is like really not even remotely close to a scientist, you would place me, if there's a bucket of scientists and non-scientists.
Well, we know you're a former musician.
That's
so
right.
you're definitely an artist.
I am more in the artist side than this. But the one thing I will say about this is I don't just logically, it's hard for me. And I know I shouldn't be applying logic to Major League Baseball, but just logically, it's hard for me to understand why all of this is so complex. You've got, okay, we're going to change baseballs. Now they're going to be slicker. So we've got to figure out some way to deal with that. We're going to change
slightly bigger too.
Slightly bigger. The core of the ball is going to be different. So it doesn't fly as far, or maybe it flies farther. We don't know. There's like these 10 trillion little tiny details that really amount to the fact that they're trying to tweak things with equipment that they probably shouldn't be messing with in the first place. And then you've got guys saying, well, you can't use a rosin bag on your non-throwing arm when you're sweating. Like, who cares if the dude...
Well, actually, the rule does... I don't think the rule states anything about the arm.
It's the hand.
It's the hand that goes into the glove.
That's so weird.
I mean, it's crazy that we're getting this specific
so granular
about things. But Major League Baseball is known for this stuff.
Yeah, it really is.
If you go back to the Buster Posey rule, the slide at home plate. That whole rule was there designed to save the catchers, because the catchers are the ones that are kind of hung out to dry. But they made this rule way more complicated than it needed to be.
Right.
Now they have to give running, the catchers have to give running lanes and this, that, and the other. And it just made things way more difficult than it needed to be. Oh, you can, if the catcher has the ball, you can still run over him. Listen, you don't want the contact. Very simple. Make the dude slide. If there's a play, you have to slide. The catcher gets to do whatever he freaking wants because he's not paying attention to the runner anyways. He's got to catch the ball coming in.
Right.
But there's a lot of things that Major League Baseball does well. But rules, to me, sometimes they make these things way more complicated than they need to be.
It's like trying to figure out what a catch is in the NFL. Nobody can seem to figure that out. And that seems to be one of the main things you
remember a couple
do.
Years ago, Major League Baseball decided that, to really look hard at the transfers, at double plays. Is that a transfer? Is it not? We had guys that were blatantly in control of the ball, mishandle the ball, no double play.
It's so weird. Yeah, so with Blanco, I mean, how do we think this is going to turn out? I mean, he was ejected. If they determine that he had a sticky substance on the inside of his glove, it's an automatic 10-game suspension, which is 2 passes through the rotation for a team, and they can't replace his spot while he's out. That's a pretty tough punishment for a team that's struggling with injury and everything else.
Sure. Here's the problem. Have we ever had a pitcher that has been kicked out for substance that has not been suspended? Not that I know of.
Yeah, I don't think so.
No, I'm not saying I know every suspension and I know this intimately, but as far as I know, we have not had a situation. So the precedence has been set. You get kicked out for sticky substance, you get a 10-game suspension. We'll keep our fingers crossed that it really seems like this was if anything, a very mild case.
Yeah.
There's just situation doesn't, what was said afterwards and
that was terrible.
How much time was spent on the field. If it was, the glove was really that sticky, this should have been an easy call. Yeah, you're gone. But no, he had to pull in the other umpires and even they talked about it for, it seemed like a couple minutes. It wasn't that long, but, and then they decided to go ahead and throw him out of the game. So I don't know. We'll have to keep an eye on it and see see. This will happen pretty quickly.
Yeah, I think so too.
If not today, in the next day or two. I expect to have some kind of words from Major League Baseball, some kind of decision. But I think, just outside looking in here, he's probably going to get the ticket.
I keep imagining them passing it off to like their freaking CSI crime lab. And they're dusting it for prints and, running chemical experiments and like dudes in lab coats. It's so bizarre. The whole thing is so strange. It doesn't help that the umpire last night was Laz Diaz, who was just one of the, if you want to rank bad umpires, you basically Angel Hernandez is at the top of the list, followed probably by CB Buckner. And then after that, you can mince words. Ron Culpa is terrible too, but Laz Diaz is way up there.
Well, I think everyone would vote. Well, and it may not be because he's the worst umpire. It's just the one we talk about the most. Angel is one, and then all the rest of them are 2A, B, C, D.
Right. That's exactly right. But Diaz has also been a bit confrontational with the Astros in the past. I know there's a bit of a reputation there too. I mean, he's not the one that made the call. But he's the thing that struck me is interesting is when they did talk about it, Ronel Blanco was like, "That's not." He goes, "That's rosin." It's from rosin, and Diaz just looked at him and said, "That's not rosin." It's like, all right, okay, Dr. Science. I'm not sure you really can make that statement.
I mean, that was one of the statements that were made. That was made in the McTaggart article was that. The umpire's actually saying, Laz, or whoever the umpire was
Backus
talking,
was
it's usually the crew chief, is saying that, it's not up to us to determine what the substance is.
Right.
Well, you just did that. You just sit there and told Ronel Blanco he's a liar.
He's turned into Bill Nye the Science Guy right on the spot. It's like it's just ridiculous. Well, it would be a big blow for the Astros.
They won though.
Yeah. Well, they did win, and that's that's what I was about to get to because we do want to talk about some good news. The Astros have won 4 out of their last 5. After they just got really kind of manhandled in New York. They really have looked good the past few games. They've been hitting with runners in scoring position better. they've been obviously pitching well. I mean, last night they got 7 innings of 1-run ball out of their relief corps, which was spectacular, including two innings from Josh Hader, which he doesn't, normally do. And
it's the third time he's done it this year.
Yeah, and I read about why he didn't want to do that because he basically got screwed in arbitration when he was in Milwaukee because the arbitration judge said you don't get as much because you didn't have as many saves. And he's like, yeah, but I pitched this many innings, and the judge was like, it doesn't matter, it has to be saves. And so he's like, well, why am I pitching 2 innings then? But but you had a great performance by pitching, and then you had the clutch hitting and the 10th. You get Victor Caratini, is that his second or third walk-off this year? It's at
That's his second. Early, he had one like right at the end of April, I think.
Yeah, that's right. And
but to me, I'm watching this at bat, and who was the pitcher?
It was after their closer came out.
Yeah, it was after Miller.
It was after Miller. He threw 2, and I can't remember who the guy was after him.
And I'm watching Caratini's at bat, and he's sitting on the breaking ball.
Is he really? I didn't notice that.
2 high fastballs that he just emergency swing. He was fouling off over the third base dugout. So that just tells me he's actually not hunting fastballs. And then he finally got a breaking ball to do something with, and didn't try and do too much. That's one of the things we've seen so far about Victor is he really has an idea what the situation was. If he tries to pull that ball, that's probably a pop-up. But he stays inside it, just hits the ball up the middle. And he's one of those guys that when the infield comes in, man, he's licking his chops. The old numbers used to be whatever your batting average is, when the infield comes in, add 100 points.
Is that true?
Yeah. Well, that's what they used to tell us. I don't know if it's just,
I guess because there's less reaction time. Yeah, right.
It's just saying what they're really saying is there's just so many more holes out there.
Right.
And he hit that ball well. Just hit it right back up the middle for a pretty nice walk-off because, the Astros have really struggled this year and last year with the extra innings thing.
Right. Oh, for sure. Well, this year were they 0 for this year until last night or 1? Maybe they had won 1.
Did they have 1?
I think they had won 1. So yeah, and the pitcher on the mound at that time was Kelly, who was on the mound for the A's.
Right.
A couple of other notes just from on the pitching staff for the Astros. Taylor Scott has turned into a very reliable relief pitcher. Yeah. And a really great story, too, considering he was kind of the last guy on the roster after spring training. He's really been very good out there. Yesterday, 2 innings, 3 strikeouts, no hits, no walks. And then Montero comes in right after him and strikes out the side, which everybody should be thrilled if we get good Rafael Montero.
Sure.
Just a very impressive performance overall. And look, let's be honest, Ronel Blanco might not have gone that deep in this game. When he went out after 3 innings, he already had almost 60 pitches, I think.
Right.
And so he had to throw a lot of pitches. So, but just a really...
Well, you got through 5. I mean, what Scott did was got you through 5.
Yes.
And that was really what the key was going to be. Yeah, you would love to get 6. And you never know. I mean, maybe he has Blanco would have a quick inning or something like that. But the first inning really killed. Half of his pitches were in the first inning.
Right.
The second inning and the third inning were both of right around 15 pitches, 14 pitches, something like that, which is about what you're looking for. Tyler did a nice job. He's got that funky arm slot. It's not quite sidearm, but he kind of tilts. It's a very unique arm slot. He's got very unique pitches, has just enough velocity to respect the fastball with the sweeping breaking ball. And, you got to love the fact that if you ever do an interview with him, he's from South Africa, man. He's got a cool accent.
He does have a cool accent. It's a fascinating story. I think there's only been like 2 guys from South Africa that have played in Major League Baseball. And he came to the States when he was like a teen because he was good at baseball. And there was no place really to play in South Africa. It's a good story. And it really is a huge benefit to the bullpen. I mean, they did exhaust a lot of guys. They have Fromber going today. So the hope would be, a ground ball pitcher like Fromber, try to be efficient, then you don't have to worry. And honestly, we need the bats to wake up. But if you could get if you get 7 out of Fromber, then you should be all right, with their bullpen. You just don't want to lose him early in the game because, man, there'd be trouble.
I actually really I thought yesterday's game there was more urgency in the way it was managed. Okay. Yeah. Managers, you never want to be put in that situation that you lose your starting pitcher after only 3 innings.
Right.
Luckily they were still winning 1-0. The way Joe Espada went about it, him and Josh Miller, they were like, you know what? Let's win this freaking baseball game. I've told you in the past that, back in the day with the Yankees, our motto was, we play today, we win today. That's it. There's nothing else. We don't worry about tomorrow. We don't worry about yesterday.
Right.
Today is the most important game of the season. And that's what it looked like last night and how it was managed. It managed like there was some real urgency. And, so with the win yesterday, they won yet another series. That's a couple in a row. They're doing, this is how you want this. You would love for them to go on a winning streak, but winning streaks, the problem with winning streaks, they come to an end.
That's right.
And there's a lot of times when a winning streak ends, sometimes you go into a little mini slump. Well, what you're looking for is consistency.
Right.
And that's what this is. They're just playing. Consistency doesn't mean you're winning every game,
right,
but you're just playing good, solid baseball. Yeah, you're going to lose a game here or there, but winning series is the key here.
Yes.
Yeah, they're 8 games under 500. Who cares? Mm-hmm. Okay. They're playing much better baseball and want them to consistently do the same.
Yeah. Winning series is it. That's the key. You don't have to win every game. You just got to string together those series wins. And in fact, right now, they need to be doing it more than ever. They've got the last couple games against the A's. They follow that up with 3 against the Brewers, who've been very solid this year. But then they've got 3 against the Angels, who are just freaking abysmal. And then they, after that, they go on a road stretch with 3 against the A's and 4 against the Mariners. So a lot of division games. I saw the stat the other day that said the Astros had played the 3rd, I think it was, most difficult record through the first part of the season. But they now, for their schedule, for the rest of their schedule, they're ranked like 24th in difficulty. So, certainly not to excuse away losses and getting yourself in a hole, but this is a unique season in which the Astros have the kind of talent that they can certainly rebound. They're getting guys back from injury. Jose Urquidy is going to be back pretty quick. So is Chas McCormick. You've gotten some contributions from guys you didn't expect, and guys like Ronel Blanco and Spencer Arguetti, and Joey Loperfido for that matter. I think what's really important right now is that, first of all, they haven't really played many ALS teams to begin with other than the Rangers. So they're going to have a lot more of those games. And second of all, it's a winnable division. Like, this is not, nobody's running away with this division.
Right.
And Mike, let me ask you about this. Somebody was talking about this the other day. Is it just me, or is there a lot of just general parity in baseball right now? I mean, you've got teams that are not typically very good, like the Pirates and a few others, who are up close to 500. And it just seems like there's a lot of teams sort of hovering around the middle, and nobody has really just completely blown everybody out of the water.
It's the reason why you play so many games, is so that somebody, a team can't just get hot and win. Now, if you can tread water, make your lows not too low, then when you do get hot, now you're talking about, getting into a positive record as far as the wins and losses are concerned. The Astros, unfortunately, had a very tough schedule so far this season, and we're not going to make excuses.
Sure.
They did not play very good baseball.
No.
They were, a lot of their losses. There were a couple. I know that they've blown some leads. That's really team. It's not even just bullpen. The rotation at times was blowing leads. Those all count too. And then just the simple fact that the offense just wasn't giving you, quality at bats late in the games that to help the pitching staff out. So, when you look at a loss after winning, that's really a team stat. That's not, you can't just put that on, your back end guys, even though those guys blew several leads. You got to put it on the whole team.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
The key is now is they've been playing better baseball. You're seeing the confidence grow. You're seeing them play with a little bit more swagger, and hopefully they can continue this. First step isn't the division.
Right.
Paying attention to the division can be a dangerous situation.
Definitely.
Well, we're only 4 games back. Well, yeah, but you got to get to 500.
Right. Start
before
there.
You got to get back to relevancy before you can really start looking at the record. And so they don't need to worry about everybody else anyways. They just need to keep doing what they're doing right now.
Yes.
Keep playing consistent baseball and winning series.
That's exactly right. I saw a stat, speaking of how the back end of the relief corps had not been very good and is getting better. Manav Gupta on Twitter last night posted in the last 7 games, Josh Hader has a .96 ERA in 9 1/3 innings pitched, only 1 earned run, 4 hits, 14 strikeouts with a .86 whip. Anybody who was quick to be like, "Oh, Hader," I hate the word.
Oh, we've all heard it.
I hate the word washed. I hate it. I've never liked it, but that's a term that kids like for these things. Anybody who's going about talking about Hader washed, y'all need to rethink, because look, he and Abreu have been money lately. They have looked extremely dangerous, and I felt like you just said it. It's a long season. You play a lot of games. The idea is that quality teams will tend to progress towards the mean, just as bad teams or players will tend to regress towards the mean. And the Astros are probably going to do that. Now, I still believe that in these next 2 weeks is really going to define how effective that's going to be for the rest of the season. If they come out of this stretch, back at 500 or just above it, they're setting themselves up very well going forward. If they come out of this stretch and they're still 3 or 4 games out behind 500, that's going to be trouble.
Well, I don't listen. It's this next 2 week stretch, in my opinion, it's not going to dictate what's going to happen the rest of the season. Now, it will dictate how hard they have to work the rest of the season,
right.
And that's really the case. Every team, I've said this before, every team goes on a run. And, the good teams, the run's longer. A bad team, maybe it's only 3 or 4 games. But, you want to make sure that, when you're not using the run just to get back to 500. We've seen Seattle do that a couple different times. They're not that way this year. That they dig themselves a deep hole. What was it, a couple years ago? They won like 14 straight going into the break, and
they lost a bunch.
The break is really what stopped them. Well, that, and they ran into the Astros shortly after the All-Star break, and the Astros took care of business. But they kind of lost their edge because of the All-Star break. So, it's one of those things. That's why we keep talking about consistency and not a winning streak, because, winning streaks, a lot of times there's a down period once it comes to an end.
Well, and plus, you don't need to win a boatload of games in a row. You just need to win consistently. Or you don't need to have you don't need to be 1,000, but 600 is bad. You definitely want to get towards that. And that's what the Astros just need to do. It's going to be, for me, the main reason I see this next little stretch of games is because so many of them are in the AL West. When you have that many games in the AL West, a division which is just not very. Look, the A's, they were at 500 entering this series, but honestly, if you look at their record, I mean, a lot of they've been eating up like the White Sox and the Marlins and teams like that. They're going to get in the tougher part of their season, and it's going to be trouble for them. But the Astros, to me, it's all about winning baseball. It's all about getting out there and playing good, solid winning baseball and stringing series wins together. The more of those the more likely they are going to be able to crawl out of this hole that they've dug for themselves. Past couple of games have certainly been evidence of that. Now, if we can just get Yordan out of his slump, because I fear when he comes out of his slump, I would be afraid if I were a pitcher facing him. Because when he comes out, he's going to start mowing guys down. It's going to be real ugly.
He's being pitched tough.
He is.
I mean, there's been some mistakes that he's missed, but, you can tell that he's the one that's got the Astros by his name, that this is the dude. We're going to do everything we can to not let beat us. And that's a tough way to hit. Hitting in Major League Baseball is tough. And I think that's a lot of where the parity in baseball that you mentioned earlier is coming from, is that, it's just a very tough sport. And, pitching is good right now.
Speaking of that, one quick last thing before we go, there was a good story in The Athletic about what baseball should do to save starting pitching. Now, I'm not so sure starting pitching needs saving, but it was an interesting, they made the point that over the last 7 or 8 years in particular, we've seen a dramatic drop off in the number of innings pitched by starting pitchers, along with a somewhat subsequent rise in the number of injuries. And of course, we've talked about that on here before. The question I have for you is, does starting pitching really need saving in Major League Baseball, or are we just entering a different baseball?
Well, I think the real problem is that there's no way to save the starting pitching, because the injuries that by the time, and then again, this is just my opinion, by the time they make it to Major League Baseball, a lot of these, big time prospects, big arms, damage is already done, The human body was only built to withstand so much stress. And when you're putting high stress on it in your developmental years, which are your teen years and early 20s, you can understand why the injuries are happening. There's always going to be the aberrations, but the trend that we're on right now, I really don't see how it's going to be able to be turned around. The guy that I always look back at with the New York Mets with Matt Harvey. Matt Harvey was a big prospect. He pitched well. They did everything, quote unquote, right in his development, and he still blew out. So what does that tell? What does that tell you is that, the answers are not set in stone. It's much closer to an art than it is a science.
Yeah, you make a really good point. To me, I don't think I'm worried about it. Like, fans are going to watch baseball whether you've got the big name starting pitchers out there or not. And
it helps. It helps. Certainly. You get JV out there, the viewership goes up,
sure.
The ratings go up a little bit. You may even get a few more people in the stands. But, a fan is a fan, and they're going to pay attention. But, all those big name players got to start somewhere. They start as a no name before they become a big name.
And frankly, who's to say that baseball that fans won't change and suddenly, there is a market out there for people who love closers, right? Sure. That's why they play the big music for them and stuff like that. But I do think it's an interesting just thought experiment to kind of wonder how they're going to deal with it. But as you pointed out, when you're pitching these kids younger and younger and harder, like the human body can only do so much, just like you said. As usual, Mike, you've got it figured out for the rest of us.
Well, I don't know about that. I don't have the answers. I may have the problem figured out, but I don't have the answers.
Yeah, that's exactly right. All right. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. As always, happy to have you. We're on Apple, Stitcher, Spotify, YouTube. You can find us all over the place. On X, at Believe in Astros. I'm at Jeff Balke. Mike's at Mike Stanton 29 and all over social media. Be sure to join us again, and we will bring you as much Astros-related news and content, hopefully more good than bad as we get further through the season. I don't like being the bearer of bad news.
We've had enough bad.
I know. We've had enough of that. I think we can turn things around. Thanks, everybody.
We got to keep our fingers crossed about Blanco.
Yeah, that's the big thing. Look, if they lose him for 10 games, okay, fine. The Astros will survive. End of the world. The Astros will survive. Yes. But maybe the folks in the lab coats in Secaucus, New Jersey, or wherever the hell they are. Where is Major League Baseball?
They're in New York City.
In New York City. I
think they're in the city.
Maybe they'll get to CSI New York. They'll find Gary Sinise and his team. There's a little throwback. There you go. And they'll get them to investigate and find out if it's rosin or some other suspicious substance.
Go get Mark Harmon.
Exactly. Yep. Get them all. Get every person from those things. Law and Order. Get them all on the phone right now.
That's it.
Let's make it happen. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. We will see you next time. As always, go Astros.
All right. Adios.